show is being hosted on Raven the Science Maven. It's going to be on this channel for a little while until we kind of, get our STEMbassy baby nice and grown, and then we can birth it off to the STEMbassy channel. So if you're watching this from Raven the Science Maven, know this is not a mistake. We meant to be here. So yes, I'm Raven the Science Maven, also known as Raven Baxter in real life, and this is STEMbassy. This is the talk show, science talk show, STEM talk show, really, where we have science ambassadors, tech ambassadors, engineering ambassadors, math ambassadors come on the show and tell us a little bit about what they're doing in the world of STEM, discuss hot topics with us. We have some exciting things going on in the world right now. A lot of crazy things happening, but some really exciting advancements in STEM coming along with that we're really excited to talk about. And we play games, right? We give away prizes. Right now, we've been giving away Amazon gift cards. So please don't hesitate to be active in the chat, okay? Because we do all of our games through our chat box here, and we can see all of your comments. And if you make a funny comment, we'll put it up here on the screen. Oh my God, I see a giant squirrel right now. Yeah, so I'm gonna introduce our guest, or our host here. We have Ariana.
Hi.
Our wildlife ecologist. We have Amanda here. She is a molecular biologist. And we have Chanel here. She is a molecular biologist and a public health expert, okay? And we love it when she puts her public health hat on, okay? Hashtag public health hat. We also have Jay in the chat, okay? Jay is our hype man this week. Jay's busy, okay? Jay has things to do. But he's still dedicated to STEMbassy and helping us out. So she's hyping us up in the chat as well as assisting us in the back. She's our tech expert. She is a UI UX engineer and has really helped us with branding STEMbassy and making it beautiful. So if you notice we had a new look lately, you can say thank you to Jay and the rest of the STEMbassy hosts for that nice new fabulous look. And we're so excited tonight because we have two amazing women in STEM joining us. I'm so excited because they're doing some really interesting work. Not only are they giving back to the community, but they're working hard, they're researching, they're studying. So we want to learn more about them, get some tips, learn about their STEM stories and what their pathways were in STEM, and also about the amazing work that they're doing in our communities. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Serena, Dr. Serena McCallum, and Jasmine Benjamin. Hello, ladies.
Hi.
Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us on STEMbassy tonight. As you heard, we're really excited to have you on, and we can't wait to hear more about you and what you're doing. So, Jasmine, would you mind starting us off with an introduction?
Sure. I'm Jasmine Benjamin. I'm in that gray area between my third and fourth year of my PhD in cell molecular and developmental biology. My research focuses on the cell signaling mechanisms that connect the glucagon and insulin receptors. So in a word, diabetes. And on the side, I like to do a lot of outreach. I'll talk about the COVID-19 that I've been helping with. And I also am very interested in policy as it pertains to prescription drug pricing and all realms of education as well.
Thank you, Jasmine. We're definitely going to have some questions for you about that. So did everybody catch all those cool things that Jasmine's doing? Okay, make sure you get those questions ready in your brain and put them in the chat, all right? We're going to ask her some questions. And then, Serena, would you be so kind as to introduce yourself?
Yes, I am Serena McCalla. I have a couple of hats. I'm the Science Research Coordinator for Jericho Schools. I was in the National Geographic movie Science Fair. And I currently run iResearch Institute, which is a summer program for students to get involved in wet bench research. And we do a variety of topics. And we actually help them to complete research projects so that they can become the next group of students participating in the International Science and Engineering Fair or possibly the Science Talent Search.
Wow. Give it up for Serena. Two heavy hitters here, putting that work in, okay? We talk about being a scientist, you think about somebody who's doing research, but it's equally as important to give back to the community and turn yourself around and help pick up the next generation of scientists to help them achieve just what you achieved as a scientist, which is, a love and a passion for research and knowing more about the world around you. So that is so cool. We can't wait to talk to you more about that. I mean, how many of us got to be on National Geographic?
Yeah, it's fun. It's a really great company.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We have some comments. We have people saying hello. That's our co-host Jay here. This is one of my longtime subscribers on YouTube, and she's also a scientist as well. And then Rhiannon, okay, girl, work, okay, yeah, they're recognizing. So fantastic. Well, let's go ahead and get started. I would love to hear from both of you about your STEM origins and want to know about your pathway to STEM. I mean, Jasmine, you're now in school studying to get a science degree, your PhD, right?
Yeah.
And so how did you get there? I mean, what was your journey like?
I think that I got started relatively late. So growing up, I got A's in everything except math and science. And to this day, I'm still terrible at math. Any math I do, I check it twice with 2 different calculators. But getting into middle school, I really just completely lost my interest in science. Like, we were doing geology and space science, which is super cool. But at that age, I wasn't very interested in it. So I just kind of fell off from science altogether and didn't really regain my interest until my freshman year of undergrad. I was taking a freshman biology course in more cell and molecular biology, and I just realized that I had a billion questions about everything going on inside a cell. And I kept asking our lab instructor all my questions. And at the end of the semester, I ended up getting an A in the course, and he was like, you actually have a lot of really good questions. You should find somewhere to start doing research and get into, biomedical research. And so I ended up actually joining his lab, and he kind of walked me through the whole process of starting research, generating my own research questions, doing experiments, disseminating or talking to the public about my research. And from there on out, the rest is history. He told me about doing the GRE and applying to grad school, and really helped me to realize my potential there. So I think that I kind of had a roundabout kind of late path to STEM, but even since I was a child, I've loved asking questions, researching the answers before I go ask someone else. And I think that since I was a child, I've always had the makings of being a pretty good scientist, but it just took someone else showing me the way to get there.
That is such an amazing story, and I feel like so many of us can relate to that, right? And one thing that resonates with me that I've heard from you and a lot of other people who have shared their STEM story is somebody had a curiosity, but then there was also somebody to help foster, that drive to learn more, somebody to answer questions, and even somebody to say, hey, I don't have the answers to your questions, but here are the resources so that you can learn more. And that seems to be a common thread in a lot of people's STEM stories, even mine. Like, I would pretty much torture my mother with all of my science questions, and she'd be like, girl, I don't know, look it up. And so she threw me into all these science programs, and that's how I started my STEM journey. And it sounds like you kind of had a similar path.
Yeah.
So why do you consider yourself like did you say you were a late bloomer in your STEM journey?
Yeah, so I sit on the admissions committee for my program, and a lot of the personal statements we always get are, since I was a kid, I've known I wanted to be a scientist. Like, I had a parent who did this, or a grandparent, or we had, some really strange tree in our front yard that really just drew my interest, and I wanted to go into STEM. And for me, I didn't really have any of that. So my parents are not science people. I'm really the first scientist in my family. And so growing up, I really was more interested, honestly, in like history and English, because those were the things that my parents knew a lot about. And those were the areas where I saw myself a lot. I saw myself in, authors and historical figures, not so much in science books. So I would like to say that, I had this, great science upbringing, but really the extent of my science upbringing was like having Legos and magnetics and learning centripetal force with a Hot Wheels track, stuff like that, that really my parents couldn't directly walk me through it. I just kind of found my way into it. And like I said, started researching things and kind of teaching myself.
I love it. I love it so much. And I love that you said you learned science from toys that most of us had, if we were privileged enough, most of us have played with a Hot Wheels car on a Hot Wheels track, and we know when it goes round and round, it stays on that track. Doesn't.
That was actually my fourth grade science project, was centripetal force. So kind of looking back at it, I've always been a bit more of an extra scientist, but kind of fell off after that.
That is so cool. We have a question for you in the chat, Jasmine. And then I want to talk to Serena about her STEM story. You guys are so interesting. Oh my gosh. So Christine, this is a question for Jasmine. Christine said, Jasmine, was there a moment when you decided to pursue science as a career? So I guess, what was that point in your life where you were like, I definitely want to pursue this as a career?
I think it was probably my junior year of undergrad. The lab I was in undergrad, my boss, my primary investigator, was very keen on having us present our research. So it's one thing to do your research, get the data, but it's another thing entirely to present it to people. And he realized that I really enjoyed doing that. Like, I would be at a poster. I'm generally not like a super expressive person, but when I talk about science, when I'm at my poster, when I'm giving an oral presentation, suddenly I'm like, look at this and look at this and this cool guy right here. And he like watched me present a poster one time, and he's like, you should keep doing this. Like, you're actually very good at this. You're good at research. You're good at talking about, the stuff that you do and the stuff that you know. You should go to grad school. And like I said, he walked me through taking the GRE, and I had a couple other professors in my undergrad institution tell me that I really had a lot of the makings of being a really good graduate researcher and ultimately a leading scientist. And so kind of that late section of my undergrad career is when I chose to pursue science as a career.
That is really great. And I'm so glad that you had those people in your life. I'm curious to know, did you have any people that look like you that kind of offered, that served as those people? Like, were the people who stepped in your life who said those things, did they look like you? Or
they did not. I did my undergraduate institution was like a small to medium-sized school in South Carolina. So there were not a lot of people that looked like me that were in the position of being professors. I still, to this day, I'm in grad school. I still don't see a whole lot of people that look like me as professors. So I'm very fortunate to have people who still, were willing to believe in me and show me my potential, but they weren't people that looked like me. So I'm hoping that I can be that for future generations.
Absolutely. I'm sure you are. Yeah, you're going to be that and so much more, because I can tell you're so passionate about what you do. And like, I'm already inspired. Like, I can't even imagine how other people feel, people who aren't even as exposed to science as we are. But I just wanted to highlight the importance of being an ally. So, we both present as brown women. I'm assuming we're Black women, and when you go to primarily white institutions, 90% of the time, you're probably not going to have a mentor in that space, or an advisor or an instructor in that space that's going to look like you. So it's so important that people who are privileged, whether it be because of their race, their gender, their economic status, et cetera, serve as an ally to those and really give affirmations, right? Because a lot of times we don't get that. nobody's really out here saying, you know, good job, you did great. You should do it as a career. You know, I never took that for granted when I was at a PWI. And I, you know, just like you, I never had anybody who looked like me telling me those things. And I was appreciative that the people who were involved in my academic career were mostly my allies and were super supportive. So if you're in the chat, like, you know, there's a lot of resources on the internet about how to be a great ally and support minorities in science particularly. So I highly recommend, if you're not sure about how to do that, do some research, get some skills, and you'll be a great asset to getting more minorities into science. So thank you, Jasmine, for sharing your story. Like, we could talk all night. I'm sure we can talk all night. All of our stories are so interesting. Serena, we are so curious to know about your journey to STEM, and oh my gosh, all the way up to how did you get on the National Geographic documentary? That's so crazy.
Well, I guess all of us probably started off the same. I used to harass my dad asking all kind of questions. I loved to look at the moon and the stars and newts and animals and life in general. So I spent a lot of time just always observing and always asking questions. And that kind of sort of started my life in STEM. But my family my siblings and I are first generation college educated. So my dad and my mom really couldn't really answer a lot of my questions about science. So I learned a lot from my teachers. I had one great teacher in high school who did a lot of inquiry-based labs, and it really got me to think about, you know, how the pieces of the puzzle come together. And my dad used to call me the science detective, because I would ask a million questions about a given topic in order to basically walk myself through the process of finding the answer, because he couldn't answer it for me. And then I went on to college to get my undergraduate degree. And I know that Jasmine brought this up earlier. There was no support. My undergraduate university was a very large state university, and everyone in the classroom did not look like me. I even had one person ask me, "Why are you here?" And that is, you know, jarring for a 16, 17-year-old with your first experience, maybe living on your own, to basically question your presence in their space. But I'm a tough cookie, so I didn't back down, and I never will back down. And I continued to study science and really thrive in it and ask a lot of questions. And I think that's a key component to becoming a good scientist. You always have to question everything. And I think that was the root of my growth as a scientist. I would never stop asking questions, and I never took the first answer as the only answer. Long story short, I always thought I was going to become a medical doctor. And that was really my focus in undergrad. I was pre-med, and I expected to go on to medical school. But when I was in my junior year in college, I had an internship at Case Western Medical School. And I followed the doctors, and I really did not enjoy following them. Like, I didn't enjoy rounds. I didn't enjoy the things I was seeing going on in the hospital. But then the second half of my internship was research. And I worked in an Alzheimer's laboratory, and I was blown away. Like, I loved all of the intricacies of the cell culturing and studying various molecular pathways. So it really got me invested in research. And at that point, I was like, okay, do I go into medical school or do I follow research? And unfortunately, unless you become one of the greats, it's not so easy to make money as a researcher. So I was like, I don't want to be poor, because I know what it feels like to be not wealthy. And I was torn. So my girlfriend's mother had a connection, and she said, you know, I can get you in to teach for a year. So because I had a research background, they asked me to teach the research program. And in that program, I met phenomenal young men and women who had loves of science in a variety of disciplines. So I learned a lot from them. And I was actually going to leave, because after about a year and a half, 2 years in, it was really taxing. I know people don't realize the job of educators sometimes, but that is a hard profession. And I didn't want to be an educator anymore, because I felt like it was too hard for the pay, to be honest. And I was like, I'm just going to go to medical school, and I'm going to leave teaching. And then one of my students said to me, well, Dr. McCalla, you can leave, well, at the time I was Miss McCalla. You can leave Miss McCalla and go on to medical school, and there'll be one great doctor. But if you stay, you can make hundreds of great doctors. And she changed my trajectory, where I ended up staying in education, and we became one of the most winningest school for these huge competitions like the International Science and Engineering Fair and Regeneron, STS. And as a result of that, we were always in the newspaper, always in the newspaper. So the producers reached out to me, and I thought that they were coming to the school to learn more about how I made my research program so great. I mean, I have kids at Harvard, Stanford, Princeton, Yale, who graduate out of my research program. And I thought they were coming to learn what we did, but it ended up becoming a full movie that won an Emmy. And I loved it. I loved it. And they did a great job in the movie, producing the movie. And it was bought by National Geographic. It's now on Disney Plus. And that's how I got in the movie. They found me. I didn't even realize that it was going to become a movie that, would be picked up by National Geographic. I just thought it was going to be a documentary about, teaching science in a different way. Because I think as researchers, we help kids to look at science, not just what they see in the textbook, but actual tangible learning experience. And that's history. Now I went on and I got my PhD because I wanted to know enough to really encourage my students and increase my knowledge so that they can keep increasing their knowledge. And that's my life. That's how I got here.
That's awesome sauce.
Yeah, that's
really, so
wow. I'm gonna log on to Disney Plus after this, catch up.
Yeah, it was a shock for me too. I didn't realize it was gonna go to them winning an Emmy. It was crazy. It was a really amazing time. It was all of 2018 and the beginning of 2019. So it was fun, and it helped me to see what we're lacking in education. Mm-hmm. And that's why I created our research foundation. I had the institute during the film, but then I created the foundation because if you have parents who are strong parents and supportive and know how to get you to the right avenues to move you up the education ladder, then you're golden. But if you don't have that, you need someone, you need an advocate. And for me, my foundation, we are trying to level the playing field. Because my students from Jericho, I adore them. I literally love them. I tell them I love them. But they have a lot of resources. And it's not balanced. And they used to get angry at me because I would go to competitions and help the underdogs. And they're like, we're competing against them, Dr. M. And I was like, I know. But these kids need to know that this, and this can be better so that they can compete against you and also win. So I created the Institute with the help of my students because they were like, she's never going to stop. So we might as well just help her. And then we built the Institute. And then I have the foundation because people donate so that I can make sure that underrepresented, underprivileged kids also have a good research experience because it's expensive to do research, as you know, probably, it's expensive.
I love that. And like, I am an undergraduate now. My mom is not from here. She didn't go to college. So I did all of the applying to school by myself, all of the reading. I had the essays, the applications, FAFSA, all of that was like just me trying to figure it out. So it's wonderful that like you're creating something where people who don't have support from their parents in that way, just because that's just not how, their family was
wonderful that like you're creating something where people
can, move and you can help them move forward and up. And I love that.
So we're supposed to do it. Pay it forward, right? Somebody help me along the way.
Yeah. So you have to go and help others. I love that.
I am sincerely just blown away by your excellence. Like both of our guests tonight are really phenomenal. And this is not to say that we've never had phenomenal guests on the show, but you both definitely shine in your own rights. And I just want to say how inspired I am by both of you. This is so fantastic. I had to bring out the notepad and okay, so questions, right? Questions. So you mentioned at the beginning of your journey, you considered a career in medicine, right? As many biology or science students might consider, because when we are growing up, we're exposed to very limited types of science careers. And a lot of kids just blurt out, I want to be a doctor, without even, maybe they're not even interested in science. They just know doctors, they've been to the doctor and that's a job. And, you know, hopefully they feel good when they go to the doctor. And so, you know, when we get to college, sometimes we still carry those ideals. And as a professor and as an academic advisor, I've had so many students come to me saying, Professor, I want to be a doctor. And I'm like, but do you even like know what that means? Some of them don't even know that a doctor is the same thing as a physician, you know, and they're planning their whole life around this idea because that's the only thing that they know. So when you went to shadow a doctor and you saw how cool research was and the actual science behind the research, like you were talking about the signaling pathways, and I was over here like, we love signaling pathways.
Me too. I love molecular biology.
And cell culture, I got really excited because I feel like that's the revelation that a lot of students need to have, you know.
And early on.
And early on, like being exposed to, okay, maybe I like science, but being a doctor might not be my thing. And that's okay. Like, that doesn't mean it's the end of my science career. It just means that I need to consider something else, right? That I'm probably going to be great at, but I just haven't seen it yet. So when you decided to, how did you feel like moving from the goal being, I want to be potentially a doctor, to I wanted to conduct research? How did you feel making that decision?
To be honest, I was afraid because I knew about undergraduate and I knew I needed to go to medical school to be a medical doctor. But you're right. I didn't know about graduate programs. I didn't know that I could become a scientist of molecular biology or genetics. I didn't know that because all I knew was I want to do science because I like science and I want to be able to take care of myself financially. And that was big to me, that I needed to be able to have a career that financially I would be stable. And because I didn't grow up in a very stable financial household, and that was imperative. So when I actually by accident fell into research, it was a whole new world. And I didn't know what the next steps were supposed to be. I really didn't. So I had to go research on my own because my undergraduate career counselors didn't tell me this. I had to go research what do I do to become a scientist. And even though I was already a scientist, but I didn't know I was already a scientist. So I went and I got a master's degree in microbiology because I love things you can't see. And that kind of bridged the gap for me that, okay, you can go and do the next step now. You've done this part, go do the next step and see what else you can learn. And that kind of pushed me towards getting my PhD. In addition, that I feel like as a woman in STEM, you have to have the credentials because no one takes you seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that without having doctor in front of my name, I was going to have some roadblocks. So that was part of it too. I know, sis. I know. I'm with you. I'm with you. So that was part of the driving motivation too.
And so thank you for sharing that. I have so many questions. What is your PhD in?
I started off at Columbia. I was trying to do molecular biology. And then financially, we had a hardship and I had to pull back. And then I found another program where they were like, I was talking to a PI from Columbia. He taught at Columbia. And he said, I was talking to him about education because at the time I was also teaching on the side, right? And he was just like, why are you going after this molecular biology? He was like, you need to be in education. He said, you're so passionate. Like, I was angry talking about how I felt like students who are at the top of their game academically are given the least amount of resources. And he was like, and then I was actually on the writing committee for the New York State Regents for biology.
Thank you.
And they would not accept my questions because they said they were too hard. And I was blown away by it. So I said, you know what is this nonsense? And he kind of, not coerced, but he encouraged me to do a science education degree in the topics that I feel are most difficult to teach, which is genetics, photosynthesis, and respiration. And I love pathways. And when I taught it, the best students would get it. But if you teach an undergraduate, they try to memorize these pathways and they lose the concept. And if you can't understand the underlying portions of the concepts, okay, you have the words, but you won't get why they should make sense in a bigger picture. So he kind of convinced me, and we created these diagnostic tests and showed that students who are above average can also do the secondary portion of the diagnostic test, but students who can pass, with multiple guesses, could not answer the questions if they were average or below average students. And it basically became a delineator between who really got the science and who did not. And I would love to see this happen in education going forward. And I think that with COVID-19, we have such an ability to change education right now that we need big mouths and strong women and strong men to stand up and shift the game, because we have an opportunity right now to make it all different. So that's what I'm doing.
we are super fans, okay? And I'm so excited. Like this is so cool. And I feel like we have really similar paths because we have similar degrees, right? Like my bachelor's was in molecular as well as my master's. I also considered a medical career. I ended up going into being a corporate scientist. And then, I'm finishing my doctorate in science education this fall. To give myself a little clap.
Amen.
This world ain't easy, okay?
It ain't easy.
But I had the same really epiphany as you did. It's like these kids, they need us. They need us. And even though some of us have this expertise in scientific fields, some of us also need to just turn it around. Like I said earlier, turn ourselves around and get some more of these kids into these programs, right? And also changing the culture around so that they can be happy once they get into the STEM field. Because let's be honest, we push these kids into STEM fields, but once they get into the workforce, it's not that nice,
Yep, and can't apply it. Yep.
And it's not we don't really have that support established in the STEM workforce for all of these kids that we want to succeed, right? We don't, the supports aren't there. And I'm talking about, at the basic level. So, we have a lot of work to do, and it takes people like Jasmine, it takes people like Serena to make these changes and help foster this love for science in the next generation and the community as a whole. And I'm so glad that people get to see you, Serena, on, you said it was it on Netflix? Did you say Disney Plus?
It's on Amazon Prime. It's on Disney Plus. It's science fair. We're actually ranked really high on Disney Plus as one of the movies to watch, because you can watch it with your family, and it's also a learning movie. And it will make you laugh. Like I laughed my butt off the first time I saw it, and I cried like a baby in the movie theater, crying. So it's some good parts and it's a great movie to watch.
And you're giving us representation. You are a professional Black woman holding it down at a science fair, okay? And it's covered by National Geographic and it's on Disney Plus. Like, can we just give it up for that representation? Thank you. You both are doing great work. So now we have some questions, right? More questions, so many questions, but we have things in the chat I want to address first, because as we were talking, so many people were acknowledging the amazing work that you are doing. So I want to make sure I put these on the screen. Hold on, let me get my little situation together because there's so many comments to work through. Jay, our co-host, said this in reference to Jasmine's story. She said, that's inspiring that although there wasn't representation, there were allies that support you. Amazing. Yes. Being an ally is so important. For Serena, Christine said, I love how honest you are being with how you chose your career path. Thank you, Dr. McCallum. Yes, it's so important to be transparent, right?
You have to be.
You have to be.
Thank you, Christine.
Right. I mean, we come from various places, and when we're talking about increasing diversity in science, it's not just skin tones, not just what you see, it's also what you hear, like how people act, personalities. Not everybody has the same story. So we have to create diversity by being transparent and telling our different stories so that all the kids coming in who want to do science hear these different stories and they can relate, okay? Because we're all not privileged. Some of us are, but some of us aren't. But we made it. We made it. And that's all that matters. Amanda said, awesome, Dr. McCalla. When passion and hard work fall in place. Thank you. See, your story is so inspiring.
Yeah.
And it's important that it's being shared. There's so many people that this is resonating with. So thank you for sharing that and not being afraid to share that.
Yes. Brandy.
I think we have to. We have to let people know the honest truth about how we got to where we are. Because people only see the glitz and the glam sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's something that we're very intentional about as STEMbassy as a whole, is making sure that we don't portray ourselves as too glamorous. You know, like we have our makeup on tonight. We're done tonight. But let's be honest, that's not quite every day that we're like this. You know, sometimes we're really silly. We're really goofy. You know, we show out. Sometimes we're really professional. We wear suits. You know, tonight I'm in a hoodie. Intentional, because I feel like y'all need to see scientists wearing a hoodie. But hold on, and this is a sponsorship, really, real quick. This isn't just the ordinary hoodie. This is phospholipids. Okay,
I love it.
phosphate in a phosphate group.
I love it.
And it's called fat rich because, you know, lipids are also fats, right? So I'm just letting you know, I might look like a gangster, but I'm a science gangster. So.
Science puns.
So run and tell that. Oh my goodness. This is a blast. Okay, so we have some questions for Jasmine. Jasmine, we heard that you operate a COVID-19 chat box. And we gotta know more about this. Okay.
Yep.
Talk about the box.
Listen, so for the audience, a chat box, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jasmine, but my interpretation of a chat box is when you go to a website and sometimes they have a little pop-up in the corner, right? And it goes bloop, and then there's a person in there that says, hey, can I help you? What's up? And you don't have to respond if you don't want to, but if you have a question, there's a person on the other end who's ready to help you, right? Mm-hmm. And I told my host I was guilty. When I was single, I used to pop up in there and be like, hey, what you doing? Like, not really knowing that it was an actual person on the other end. I thought it was like an artificial intelligence robot. So when you came into our show and you're like, oh, I was a chat box person, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know real people. So I want you to tell us about your experience being the COVID-19 chat box. Chat bot or chat box?
It's a chat bot. So it's not quite like, you know, a little pesky box that pops up in the bottom corner of your screen. It's actually an entire website. So I am not really in charge of it. I've just kind of been helping out since really kind of the beginning of it. But it was started by the Federation of American Scientists and the New Jersey Office of Innovation and the Governance Lab in New Jersey. And they created this COVID-19 Ask a Scientist chatbot, which is just a standalone website where you can go and ask your questions. And you can either have your questions answered on the spot, or you can ask a scientist. And so if you ask a scientist, it populates a Google form that we have. And basically scientists, medical doctors, physical therapists, all sorts of people, we go through the questions and we answer them with research. So this is a lot different than, you know, stuff you might see on social media about like 5G causing COVID-19, and you ask for the research and suddenly the status gets deleted. We answer the questions with facts. We answer the questions only with scientific papers or primary sources. So we're not going and pulling something from BuzzFeed that's used as clickbait to answer your question. And we've started out very slowly. So we got maybe, a couple hundred questions a week, but at this point we've answered over 10,000 questions. And the chat bot has gotten a shout out from the New Jersey governor, sorry. And it's also being integrated into Amazon Alexa. So I've been kind of just really pushing it because being the only scientist in my family when COVID-19 popped up, everyone was in my inbox like, I really need to wear a mask everywhere. I really need to wash my hands. I'm like, you need to wash your hands, when there's not a virus, but you definitely need to wash your hands now. And so I really push it because I know that I'm not the only person who's the only scientist in their family. I know that there's also a lot of people who are, kind of distant related for me, friends of my family who also can use the information. And we've seen a lot of questions come in from that.
I have a question. What is the most common question that you've seen on the platform? And what is the craziest off the wall question that you've seen on the platform?
Most common question, at first, the most common question literally was, do I really need to wash my hands? And we were like, yes, that's a good idea. Like any day of the week, any time of the year, it's a good idea to wash your hands regularly. I think one of the most common questions, of course, do I need to wash my hands? But now it's more like, what are the treatment options? Tell me about the clinical trials that are going on, which is a bit harder to answer because there's so many clinical trials going on. But I think the craziest question I've gotten might be, a combination of two questions. One, which is actually very important, but just kind of caught me by surprise, is, do you think that people are going to adopt a lot of animals during this? And afterward, do you think they'll return them to the animal shelter?
Oh,
I was like, this is very sad. This is a very sad question, but it's a good question. But I have no knowledge as to how to answer this question. So of course I was like, yeah, people will probably adopt animals. Hopefully they don't take them back, but I know here where I live at, all of our animal shelters are empty, adoptions, fostering, all that. So I'm hoping they don't fill back up. Another kind of off the wall question I got was, like, when do you think I'll be able to travel again? I have these tickets for early June for, just a honeymoon, and I want to know if I'll be able to, take that flight. And I was like, I'm not a TSA agent. I'm really not. We get most of our questions are science-based, but every now and then we get an off-the-wall question where we just have to kind of answer it as best we can, but there's really no research to address it.
Okay. That's really hilarious.
I mean, but it's true. That's like a lot of things. Like I have an internship this summer and I'm like, don't know if I'm gonna go. doesn't look like it right now. But yeah, I hope everyone gets through all of this. We have some more questions. One of them is from our co-host in the chat. So if I'm going to read it to you, that's why I'm looking down. So she's asking, what is your role in the chat box? I think you talked about that a little bit, but also how does the chat box simulate or prevent unnecessary visits to the ER and providing real-time info related to COVID-19?
These are both good questions. So I really answer the questions behind the scenes. So we have a bunch of different tabs. We have treatment options, we have cell molecular biology questions, we have questions specifically for medical doctors, we have questions related to travel, questions related to the economy. So it runs the gamut of all the COVID-19 related questions. And so I really answer most of the, I try to address most of the treatment-based questions and most of the questions about how it affects cell. And a couple of the, other questions that I might have some knowledge about. Forget the second part of the question. How does it help with visiting the ER? Yeah. So I think that it's a very easy to use website. So when you go to the site, and I'll make sure that I leave it with you all after the show, when you go to the site, there's a box that says, type your question here. And we have had a lot of questions from people who say, hey, my nose is running suddenly. Should I go to the ER? And we're like, hey, wait a couple days, take a Claritin. It could just be your allergies, and usually that resolves the issue. So we do see quite a few instances where people type those kinds of questions into the box to get answers that way as well.
And how did you originally get involved in this? How did you know where to go to be able to help in this way?
So I am a member of the National Science Policy Network, and they have been playing a really important role in the bot as far as recruiting people. Okay. So part of the National Science Policy Network is always outreach. And so a lot of us were, obviously not in our labs right now, trying to do anything to avoid having to read papers. So, doing other research and being able to kind of pay it forward and answer public questions is something that I think a good deal of us are very excited about.
Yeah. And is this only for people within that association, or can other scientists get involved? How does that work?
No, absolutely. Other scientists can get involved. I would just shoot an email over to the National Science Policy Network. I think their website is nspn.org, maybe. I'll double check that. But you can go to any of the National Science Policy Network social media and shoot them a message or an email, and they will definitely get you set up with that.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that and how to get involved. That's wonderful.
Speaking of websites, can you tell us where any of our viewers, if they have questions about COVID-19, can go to ask you and other scientists what the exact link is?
Absolutely. The link is covid19.fas for Federation of American Scientists.org. And right now the website is primarily in English, but I think that they're working on getting it translated to other languages as well. That's it.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Super fascinating work, okay? Gee, listen, if you guys have any questions, I want you to put them in the chat right now, okay? This is a once in a lifetime, hopefully not once in a lifetime, but this is a really great opportunity for you to get some cool questions to our super cool scientists who are doing amazing work in our communities, giving back. All right, Jasmine, just to reiterate not everything, most of what she said, she is a scientist and graduate student getting her doctorate in a science field, okay? And she is working on the COVID-19 chat bot. And you can find that chat bot at this website down here. And you can ask a scientist questions about COVID-19, okay? So if you have questions about COVID-19, listen, we are about to use this link for our future shows. When all these people get in our audience with all these curiosities about COVID-19, and we're just gonna say, go to the chat box. We told y'all last week. So
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. Very cool. Very cool. Okay. So I believe that one of our hosts, right, Chanel. Hey, Chanel. Are we talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Are we talking about Henrietta?
Oh yes. Someone had a last week. One of the attendees in the chat wanted us to discuss Henrietta Lacks, and so I'm not quite sure what the context of the conversation was supposed to be. But in general, if you don't know, Henrietta Lacks was a Black woman who died at a very, very young age from cervical related cancer. And the reason why she's so important is because if you are a researcher, it's almost 100% chance at some time in your research you have touched a Hela cell, because believe it or not, her cells are the cells that we all use for almost every experiment that you want to have a changeover in vitro. So how in vitro works is you have a cell line, and in that cell line, once you proliferate it or make more of those cells, they can be carried on for other experiments. What's so great about Henrietta Lacks' cells is that they were called immortal cells. Her cells, which were cancer cells, could divide over and over and over and over again without dying. And that's something that is incredibly important when you're doing research. Most of the time when you're using a cell line, you can only proliferate it or make a new generation up to X many generations, and then it's no longer as viable as the beginning cell line. But with her cells, they lived for dozens and dozens of generations beyond what normal cells would. Now, the controversy about her cell line and how it came to be such an important piece of medicine and scientific research is that she didn't give any kind of consent. I'm hesitant to use consent, but that's basically what it's about, consent. She didn't give authorization for anyone to, number one, remove her cells for the purpose of science, and then two, to make money off of that cell line. And her family was not made aware of it until well after she died and well after what was done was done. And so that's the big deal about why it's so important. And that's also a big deal about why we have things like medical consent forms now. She was a big part of that. Her family still hasn't received any funds from the millions, it may even be in the billions at this point, the millions of dollars that have been made off of her cell. Her cell line is crucial to research, crucial. Without her cells, there are so many things we wouldn't, in the science community, we would not have been able to make headway on so many things about her cells. So she's incredibly important to the scientific community and incredibly important to scientific discovery, medical discovery, and it's really unfortunate what happened. But again, I'm not sure the person who asked the question about having this brought up on our show this week is still there. If you are, please put your question in the chat box again. Or if you want to just chime in and say, hey, I want to talk about this specifically, we're here to discuss it. But that's the basics about Miss Henrietta Lacks.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Chanel, for sharing that with us. It's so important to acknowledge her. And it's, I don't know, as a Black scientist, I will say, I'm not going to curse on the show, but I'm going to say it's been a mind scramble to work in a lab and be given Hela cells. We call them Hela, capital H, lowercase e, capital L, lowercase a, Hela cells, when we're doing cell culture for experiments in the lab. And I've been given Hela cells numerous times. And, ethically, it's been a huge struggle for me, just because it was really hard for me to grasp, this is a part of her. I'm working.
So did you know?
Yeah. Wait, did I know what?
So in my lab, when I was introduced to Hela cells and other kinds of cell lines, that never even came up. I didn't even know that this whole Hela thing, I didn't know that Henrietta Lacks and Hela cells were connected until well after I had already left the lab, because they don't teach that in the lab. Even in the lab where you work, they don't teach us that usually when you get a cell line, like for instance, green monkey kidney, we know where that comes from. You know what I mean? Or human liver cells, we know where those come from. I was never given the background on Hela cells, ever, until after I left the lab. And that's because of the book that came out. And I was like, oh, I used those in my lab. I had no idea.
How I found out was there's different types of cell lines. There's cell lines that we get from the Cancer Institute, RPCI, Roswell Park Cancer Institute cells that are cells that were isolated from that Cancer Institute. There's HEK cells, HEK cells, which are human embryonic, somebody help me, kidney? No. Kidney? HEK cells.
Yes.
And then there's different.
But they're not. They're actually epithelial cells.
Right. Oh, thank you. Okay. Wait, is it epithelial?
They made a mistake. The original papers that wrote about them called them human embryonic kidney cells. And then and everybody had been calling it that. And then they did further studies and realized they were actually epithelial cells. But they can't change the name. They can't change the name because so many papers already have it.
So it's already out there.
Yes. So they have to leave it. It was a mistake.
I'm shocked right now.
There's so much nonsense in research. Good nonsense. That's serious.
Okay.
I tell my students about that all the time.
That's some science tea right there,
Isn't it?
Boom. Boom. Mind blown. Thank you. Oh my gosh.
Somebody in the chat said, are they still giving you guys Hela cells? Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, because they're the best things to use. They never ever,
they never die out.
It's a lot to kill a Hela cell. You have to
I was doing research on the cell line, and with each cell line, they treat it differently, right? If they give you neuronal cells, you treat them differently from, HEK cells, which are different from bacteria cells. So I was trying to do research, like, okay, how do I treat a Hela cell? What does Hela even mean? Is it helium? Like, what is that? And so I'm on the internet and I'm like, Henrietta Lacks, like, okay, did she discover the cell? What is her role in the actual name of Hela?
It's her, sis. It's her.
It's her.
It literally is her.
It's her name. I was so disturbed that I went into the lab and I was like, did y'all know that these cells were obtained without consent years ago? And everyone's like, yeah, but this is what they said to me.
Yeah, but
are you ready for this? Because I'm obviously still like worked up about this. They said it doesn't matter because the cells had been so mutated, right? Since they were taken from her without her consent, they were so mutated since then because it had been decades that it was not recognizable to be like, hers, right? That was their excuse. So that's how other people around me were justifying this. And I was like, I refuse to accept that because it's still coming from her. We still write Hela on the culture flask. So, it's not so mutated that we had to rename it. Like it's still her stuff. So
yeah.
You know what? That brings up, and this is another topic for another day, but we need to mention this. This is also so important because this is a great segue into all things medical apartheid, all things about crazy research that was done on African Americans without their consent. I mean, this is a topic within itself, but this is a really, really good example of how consent and how theft and how unauthorized testing, it's just going down, this is like really going down a rabbit hole, but it's super important to understand that what Raven just explained and the explanation that she gets received is not okay.
Yeah.
You can't explain that away. But
how about the fact that we don't even have enough African American cell lines out there to get accurate
proper research on our
Let's talk about that.
Things that affect us. Yes.
Correct. And maybe that's why some of the drugs that are out there on the market don't work
for us the way they should, or they make us sicker, or they don't metabolize the way they should in our bodies.
Hello.
Like statin drugs. How about that? Can we talk about statin drugs later?
Preach.
Sis.
We have so many layers of things we have to fight through.
Mm-hmm. So many layers. Even down to just basic health concepts.
Yes.
But again, that's another topic for another day. That's two topics, actually.
I had the organ when you're like, you know, when you're at church and they go do 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 do. Yeah. I need an organ to do do do. You know, plug in some sounds here because y'all are preaching today. It's definitely a word in the chat. You guys, let me just pull up some of these comments in the chat because we have such high engagement tonight, most likely because we have some really special guests here and everybody's really enjoying.
They came to see Jasmine and Serena tonight.
Came to see y'all tonight, showing up and showing out. Oh my gosh, they really, it's just comments, right? So shock, right? They're still giving y'all Hela Cells? Yes, they're giving us Hela Cells.
Because they work. I mean, fundamentally, so from the science standpoint, the understanding is, of course, they're going to continue to use them because they work and they have been such an integral part to scientific discovery. So I don't think that's going to stop. I don't think we're ever going to get the community to stop using these cells. They're just too crucial.
Yeah, people are learning. The more you know. Yeah. Somebody said, I'm curious, are Hela still? Yes. Hela Cells are still available for research. Do companies tell customers about Hela Cells? No. No.
That's why when that book came out, it blew everything wide open when that book came out. Everyone was like, what? That's why the big controversy was no one knew.
Nope.
I mean, people knew, but the rest of us didn't know.
Yeah.
This is a funny comment. That's funny.
I actually want to comment on this because it's really sad because her family still has not seen a dime from this. But also her cells were taken from Johns Hopkins, and in an effort to kind of smooth things over, they're naming a building after her, which is well overdue, but it's not going to do anything because whatever discoveries you make in that building, you're still not going to get any money from it.
That's true.
So it's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. It's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Listen, if NSF grant money was actual physical money, she should be on the face of it. Okay. That's where I'm at right now.
That's the tea.
That's the tea. I love this comment. It's so funny. Yeah. So let's see. Somebody said, yeah, that's where the distrust starts. Being transparent about what's going on is really crucial to healing some of these gaps, wounds that exist in our communities because of mistrust in the science of research, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a whole list of things that have been done to minorities as a whole, let alone Black people, that, I mean, gives people a really legitimate reason to be apprehensive about trusting scientists and trusting science. And, as a scientist who's used Hela Cells, I feel like there's something just to be said about that. The fact that we're not disclosing up front on the ATCC website. Isn't that where you buy the cells, right? That's the site where you buy the cells. Mm-hmm. Right. On the website, there should be a disclaimer for ethical reasons, right? because they teach science ethics at colleges. They need to carry that same energy to these websites where you purchase things that were obtained unethically, right? Unethically obtained. You know, they need to make that disclosure. So I mean, there's so many things. Let's see.
There's a word for that, Raven. It's called iatrophobia. It's a real thing. And particularly it applies to Black folks. It could apply to everybody, but particularly usually see that in Black communities because things like this happened and they know that it happened. And so they have a really validated fear of what we call big pharma, of medicine, of science. I think a lot of people that say they don't trust vaccines when it comes to the Black community, it's not always from a place of ignorance. It's from a place of Tuskegee wasn't that long ago. You know, so these are people's grandparents and you know, or someone that knew someone. So we have to remember also that there were things that happened that really do give credence to these feelings. I'm not going to say that I'm an advocate for. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to say that there's a very valid reason that some people don't trust medicine or science, and this is why, because they've seen what has happened in the past. Tuskegee syphilis experiments, Dr. Marion with the gynecology studies, the Black Panthers fought against scientists saying that Black folks were more likely to commit crimes because of they have a different brain function. So there's so many different times that in science we've used science against certain communities, and we just can't, again, public health that we can't just say, oh, certain communities don't have this, they don't have. There's a structural set of rules that are in place that have been implemented against certain communities, and we can't ignore that. So that's that on what I think about that.
Thank you. Public health hat. Hold on. Hashtag public health hat. She's gonna just to remind you all, because we have people coming in and out the chat. Lots of people coming in and out. Chanel is Dr. Chanel Tolson, and she is a public health expert as well as a molecular scientist. So, you know, she has this really unique perspective when we start talking about these issues that affect a lot of people and a lot of scientists. Her public health perspective is very much valued. So we love when she puts her public health hat on and gives us the tea, right? Somebody asked us if they can contact us outside of YouTube, and I put our email address in the chat.
Of course.
You can email us at thestembassy@gmail.com. So that's where you can email us if you have any questions or topics that you would like for us to cover in the next shows. We'll be happy to consider it. Just send us your thoughts, your ideas, even if you have comments that maybe you weren't comfortable sharing. Make sure they're nice because we know how to hit the block button. But if you have comments that you weren't comfortable sharing in the chat, you know, that you think we would be receptive to, please feel free to share it with us. You know, we definitely
contact us through our Instagram as well. Is that open? Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And we're at STEMbassy on Instagram and the STEMbassy on Facebook. So, and we also have a website, STEMbassy.org. Okay, we have some special things coming out later on this year that we're really excited to bring out onto the table for you guys. A lot of cool opportunities that we're really excited about giving back to the community. So be sure to also know about our website, STEMbassy.org. Let's see. We have a giveaway, right? Don't we have a giveaway?
Giveaway time.
Yay! So we have a giveaway, guys. Just to remind you, this is not just your ordinary talk show, okay? This isn't a place where you just come and watch amazing people who have even more amazing guests. Okay, I'm pointing to you two. Even more amazing guests on the show to contribute to amazing conversations about science, but it's an opportunity for you all to engage as well. It's an opportunity for you all to soak in information, gain some perspectives, share your perspectives, inform us, because sometimes you guys come in the chat and you guys give us information that we didn't even know about, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a community. This is a community for people who consider themselves ambassadors to STEM, right? And you don't have to be a scientist to be a STEM ambassador. You just have to care about science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and progressing it, right? So everybody here is a STEM ambassador because you're supporting STEMbassy right now, and we want to reward you because you're such loyal people. So every week we have a key word or a key phrase that we ask you to remember, because we're going to ask you at the following show what that key phrase or keyword was to reward you with a $5 gift card. Now, don't say the word yet, okay? The game does not start until I say so, okay? Because last time, y'all started before I said go, and it didn't work how we needed it to work. So I need y'all to just chill, just wait, okay? What I need you to do right now is just acknowledge that you're in the chat. I see a lot. There's so many people watching right now. It's actually kind of freaking me out a little bit. But I need all of you to go into the chat and just say, I'm here. You can say I'm here. You can type in ASDF, GHJ, like just type something.
Or just put an emoji up. Put a hand emoji up. Here.
Emojis, you know, give me all that. Okay, here are the rules. I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to also start a timer, okay? Not that I think you guys need it, but I'm going to give you guys a certain amount of time. Look at all these people in the chat. A certain amount of time to answer this question. Let's say a minute. And the rule is that if you won last show, if you won the prize of the show last week, last Sunday, okay, you will not be eligible to win this week. That is because we are trying to be fair, and some of you are so loyal. Like we appreciate that you are here. We love that you're here, but
y'all keep it's the same two of y'all.
I can already tell who put their hands down already. I can already tell.
We want to spread the prizes across the board, okay? It's like if we had a dozen hot dogs in their hot dog buns, we can't just pour the whole bottle of ketchup on one hot dog, okay? Each hot dog's got to get like a nice little squiggly of ketchup on it. So that's what we're trying to do here, okay? Look at all these people. We have like at least 12 people here who said I'm here, and they just keep rolling in. So throw something in the chat. I want to make sure you guys are here so you don't miss it. Okay, so boom. The game is going to start. I didn't say it started yet.
Listen, y'all,
get ready. Get ready. Get ready.
Waiting to press.
Okay, all right, okay. Listen, because I know somebody had these fingers last time. I want to know, we, STEMbassy hosts, okay? Raven, Ariana, Amanda, Jasmine, our guest host, Serena, our guest host, and Chanel, our host. We want to know, what was the word of the week from last week's show on Sunday? I'm starting my timer now.
Okay, the word of the week for last week's show.
Do it. The word of the week last week. I'm watching that. I'll tell you.
So I'm starting the timer now. And don't say anything if somebody says it in the chat, okay? And if you won last week, you bet not. Say nothing.
They could be supportive in the chat, but
give some claps.
Is the timer starting now, Raven?
I started the timer.
Okay, go. Everybody go. Go. What was week last week? Go.
Go. We got to get some prize music next week.
Oh, yeah, we need prize music.
Pull up, make someone garage.
Don't tell Ariana. Oh, my gosh. She's getting her sound effects ready.
Oh, but it kept trying to throw me ads, so I couldn't open up my app today because it kept doing like weird music in the background.
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't know. I don't even know where my phone is. Oh, here it is. Oh my gosh. This might be the first time. Well, it's probably because we told the people last week that they.
Yeah, we told them. No, but we didn't say if you were here. We said if you won. If you won last week, you were ineligible.
Right. Okay.
But if you were here last week, you should be able to tell us what the word was.
Yeah. Well, while we're waiting, can I ask Dr. Bacala another question? How many you said that the science fair is international. How many countries participate?
So of course for COVID-19, it was canceled this year. But last year we had, I think it was about 80 different countries at the International Science and Engineering Fair. It's amazing. It's an experience. It's a once in a lifetime experience. Even as an adult, when I go, I'm still in awe of meeting so many brilliant young scientists from all over the world. And they're so passionate about what they're doing. So it's so exciting to be a part of that. I wish I knew about those competitions growing up. I didn't know that there was an ISEF or an International Science and Engineering Fair in high school, because I would have been there. I would have won, because it is a once in a lifetime experience. I know my students always say it was the best thing they've ever done.
That's
awesome.
amazing.
Yeah.
I have one more question. Is it only restricted to English-speaking countries, or do you have any other countries from like West Africa or maybe like South Africa,
yes.
Portuguese or French or something like that?
Ghana. One of the top winners last year was from Ghana. There was South Africa. I mean, literally all of Europe, Australia, even. It's literally across the world. It's Myanmar. They're everywhere. And they come in Brazil. One of the girls in the movie is from Brazil, and she comes in and they wear their little Brazil jackets, and it's so nice to see them. It's like and then some others, they come from Korea, they come from China, and they are wearing their traditional garbs like during the actual judging day. So that's also beautiful to see. It's an amazing event. Like, I encourage any young scientist, come up with a good project, apply at your regional, and try to get there, because it's a once in a lifetime.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for telling us more about that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Again, such fascinating work. We're so lucky to have you both on the show. Like, this is just so inspiring. Like, don't you guys want to get out and just do something? Like, come on. We're all doing stuff, but I mean, this just inspires us to push even harder at everything that we're already working so hard toward. It's always great to just be around like-minded, ambitious, successful women who are doing what they love to do in life and feel really good about it. I mean, it's a breath of fresh air. It's a drink of filtered water. I mean, like, it's the best. But nobody in the chat has said the
Dee
word.
said she knows, but she doesn't want to say because she won 2 weeks.
Knows it. But I'm going to give another question. Because I want to be fair,
Yeah, there's a lot of new people tuning in. We want to, give them a chance.
So we waited about 5 minutes. No one had the answer. I'll give you the answer, but I'm going to ask you another question to give everyone a new opportunity to win a $5 Amazon gift card. Come on. $5. Let's go. Okay. The word of the week. One of my hosts want to share it?
Me! Can I do it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Disparity, as in health disparity.
Disparities, public health hat.
So public health hat. So last week we talked about health disparities. And so the word of the week last week was disparity. And a disparity is something that is going to affect a particular community more so than another. Disparity. I feel like Sesame Street.
Yes, this is definitely Sesame Street for adults, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't know, with Sesame Avenue. I don't know if you want to spice it up a little bit.
STEMbassy Avenue.
Super cute. Super cute.
Oh my goodness.
So yes, that was the word of the week. We have a new word of the week that we will tell you after we finish this next question that you guys will answer. Okay, somebody will be getting this $5 Amazon gift card.
Yeah.
So hang on tight. Okay, so the question is nothing to do with science. So even playing field for everybody. Maybe not. Probably not.
Regular.
But the question is, what is the only U.S. state that only borders one other? What is the only U.S. state that only borders one other? You have 1 minute.
I'm pulling up a map right now.
I think I know.
But I want to verify if I know.
I don't think so. I don't know if I got this one.
We have some answers here in the comment section.
Can we brainstorm? I feel like it's like a northern one. Oh yeah, we got some responses.
Oh, look at the responses coming in.
They're coming in.
Look, I mean, I told you guys, we have so many people tuned in tonight to participate. Like, this is so cool. Thank you for joining in. Okay, so your minute's up, and almost everyone had the correct answer.
I don't know that. That's like
Maine.
That's what, yeah, it's feeling.
Answer is Maine. So, according to what I'm looking at, the timestamps, because we get the exact time at which, on my end at least, get the exact time down to the second, who was the first responder. So the first responder with the correct answer was Becca.
Bada bangs!
Becca!
Becca!
Okay, Becca, congratulations!
Wait, I think that's my okay.
You know Becca?
Yeah, that's fine.
You are the winner of a $5.
$5 Amazon gift card. Now you can't buy a whole lot, but it should cover the tax.
Yeah. We're gonna make a song for that, and that's gonna be like the ending. Can't get a whole lot, but it'll cover the tax.
Y'all move to
Oh man!
Oh
Congratulations, Becca. So what you need to do is you need to email the STEMbassy so we can get your email address, and then we will send you your gift card.
Yes.
Email us at STEMbassy@gmail.com. Congratulations, Becca.
Yes, congratulations. Becca. Congratulations. And just for the record, I got a pack of 10 of these for $6. Okay, these are really super cute. I love the way that these write. All right, these are my new favorite pens. You can get a pack of 10 of these for $6 on Amazon. I'm just letting you know you can't yourself on $5. And the way that this quarantine is set up, you better go ahead and get you some $5 freebie. Oh my goodness! So
can I ask Jessica one question before we close out for the night?
Of course.
I'm sorry, Jasmine. I'm so sorry. I said Jessica.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at Jessica's comment. Jay's name was Jessica. Sorry. Jasmine, you told us a lot about what you do now for your research and with the STEMbot and whatnot. But what are you going to do when you're done with your PhD? Where are you going?
I want to go into policy. So right now I'm working my way toward a postdoctoral fellowship with the American Association for the Advancement of Science. They have a science and technology policy fellowship where they place you in congressional office. And so that's what I'm working toward right now. But ultimately I want to go into being a policy analyst or maybe even running for office myself.
Hi, sis.
Get ready to vote.
Okay. Somebody who's going to be in the higher echelon that actually knows the foundation of what they're talking about.
I love that.
A concept.
Yes. And I'm so glad you said that because I've recently had the opportunity to be on a celebrity's platform. They invited me to go live with them. And one of the first things that I talked about, after we finished chit-chatting was the importance of voting and the importance of having science and people who understand science in office. And, this being an election year, I want to say it again, make sure that, no matter what candidate you decide to support, make sure they have a sound and just understanding of science, right? And that they support science. Because as we see right now during this pandemic, science is so important. We are relying on science right now. That's why we can't go outside. Right now, we're at stay-at-home orders because we're waiting on vaccines, right? So we can go outside, so we can be protected against pandemic diseases like this. So we have to, be aware of science, support science, make sure that science is being supported at the government level. You see what's going on in Florida, where they have people elected into office that don't understand science. Yeah. So, and I'm not going to for any political opinions, but I just want you to be aware, observe, see, and decide for yourself, how do you want your world to look? But in my opinion, I think that the way to go is to at least support science, right? At the basic level. I don't think you can go wrong with that. So with that being said, I think we have to leave you guys with the word of the week. Okay. And the word of the week is usually related to something that we've spoken about on the show. And that makes it easier for you to remember next week. You can also, in the future, we're getting our websites up to date, but it looks okay right now. Okay. Go to STEMbassy.org. We do blog write-ups of each of our episodes. So there will be a blog write-up about this episode and everything that we talked about, including maybe the word of the week. So it would benefit you to be up on our website as well, in case you forget. So our word of the week is
consent. There was too long of a pause. I had to.
Thank you.
So if you join us next week when you come back and play the game, you can have a chance to win $5. $5 from Amazon on a gift card. The word that you need to remember is consent for next week. Also, I want to make a quick shout out to Jada14, who's graduating next year. Okay, Jada14.
Yay! It's so exciting. Oh my goodness. Yes.
There's also a comment calling for closing thoughts from our guests, if you'd like to share.
This is when I get my organ.
This has been a lot of fun. It's been really fun interacting with all of our guests over in the chat. Hopefully I can come back on another time and talk about, hopefully by the time I get back on here next time, COVID-19 won't be such a permeating topic. I'll be able to talk about something else. But it's been really fun, interacting with everyone and meeting everyone.
I had a blast. You ladies are phenomenal. I am impressed by this panel. I'm impressed by what I've heard. And thank you for being the women in STEM, doing the thing that we need to get done. And then for everybody that's out there listening, support somebody. That is the biggest issue, I think, amongst women, is that we're so busy trying to win that we forget when you're helping someone, you're also rising. So support others and make sure that you're always looking around and making sure that you're helping your neighbor. And that makes this world a better place, even when we have a whole lot of crazy going on. And thank you for having me, because this was amazing. And it's nice to be able to chat with a bunch of women who are brilliant. So thank you. And I had a good time. Invite me back.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back.
We all agree.
There's so much more to talk about. Absolutely.
Yeah, we all agree that we would love to have you back, and we will certainly keep in touch to make sure that we have you guys back on the show. I want to make sure that the audience knows how much we enjoyed having you guys. I mean, this is probably the most engagement that we've had in a while, and between our dynamic guests that we had on the show, our accomplished guests, our talented host panel. Okay, and we also have, I don't want you guys to forget, our host has been in the chat. Okay, this is our host, Amanda has been hyping us up in the chat. Okay, making sure that you guys are also staying engaged and paying attention to these amazing things that our guests have been saying. So, just make sure you come back next week so we can have an even better time. Remember, this is a new format, so it only gets better from here. We're all still adjusting, because remember, it used to be just me on the show, and now I have these amazing co-hosts here. So make sure you keep tuning in, because we're always improving. We're always looking for more ways to have fun, better games, more shenanigans. And so until next time, now that we've heard our closing thoughts from our guests, I think it's time for us to say goodbye. Is it time to say goodbye?
It's time.
Goodbye.
Bye.
See you next week, guys. Bye.
Tell a friend.
Bye.
Tell a friend. So cute. Oh my goodness.